Hey guys, and welcome back to the Inside Scoop, the only advice column podcast for kids. Okay guys, we actually have a special guest today, Cary from the Salon.com newsletter and the Since You Asked Advice Column podcast. But, quick reminder before we get on to that, if you want your questions answered and featured in my podcast, just voice message me through Anchor or email me at insidescoopquestions@gmail.com. Cary is going to be answering 3 of the questions I asked him, as well as giving advice on one of the questions you guys sent in. So let's get right on to that.
Hi, my name is Cary, and for 12 years I wrote an advice column 5 days a week for Salon.com. And I'm 67 years old now and retired, but when I saw Anya's advice from kids for kids, I thought it was really wonderful. And she asked me if I would come in and be a guest on her show, which I'm delighted to do. She had 3 questions for me and then also a question from a listener. So her first question was, what inspired me to write an advice column? And I must be honest. And being honest is an important part of being an advice columnist. And say that I had not actually planned to do it, but I was working at Salon.com as an editor. And we had an advice columnist named Garrison Keeler, who is a famous radio host. He used to host the Prairie Home Companion. But he got sick and he had to quit. So we were looking for someone new. And every week we would have people try out, but no one seemed right. So I said, well, I'll try it just to help out. So that was how I became the advice columnist for Salon.com. I offered to help. And that was a great lesson in working life, that often the way to get a better job is to see how you can help out. So that's how I became an advice columnist, and I did it for 12 years. Also, Anya asked me, what is the one thing my podcast did for people, my podcast or my column, that I didn't expect? And I would say the biggest thing is that I think that some people were actually saved from suicide because I wrote a column to someone who was thinking about suicide. And I wrote it in such a way that it moved people's hearts, and I still get letters from people saying thank you for that column. It reminded me that life is worth living, which is pretty heavy. And when I was a child, I couldn't imagine such a thing, being so sad that you didn't want to go on living, but it does happen today. So I think that was my biggest accomplishment, the thing that gives me the most satisfaction. As to what I would tell someone who's interested in doing what I did, well, as I say, I never expected to be doing it. I was working in a job and it became available. So one thing I would say is, if you want to do something connected with this, work in a place where this kind of thing happens, like a newspaper or magazine or, an internet site where it might be possible to end up doing it. If you decide to do it on your own, which Anya is doing, it can be done. You just need to find enough people to listen and to write to you. But it seems to have worked out for Anya, so maybe it would work out for you as well. Now, also, a question came in from a listener, which I will read aloud and then offer some advice to this listener. And I must apologize for being 67 years old. I may not understand everything, what it's like to be a kid today, but I do remember being a kid. The question is this: I just moved to a new neighborhood, and it is pretty hard to make friends there. It seems like everyone already has a group of friends that they hang out with. I have already tried to talk to people, but it is just not the same as my old friends. I have absolutely nobody to talk to, so I just stay inside the whole day. It can get pretty boring. It is almost like there is no place for a new kid. What do you think I should do? Signed, Very Bored. Dear Very Bored, I do remember moving to a new neighborhood and finding it hard at first to get to know the kids and to be accepted by them. But I must say this, you don't really want to stay in your house every day. It may be a little uncomfortable, and it certainly won't be like it was with your old friends. But if you go out and play and hang around, these groups of kids will get used to seeing you. They'll get used to knowing that you're that kid, the new kid, and eventually they'll accept you into their group. At least one of them will. Also, among the groups, if you can observe and find that they're not all alike, some may be unfriendly, but there may be one or two kids in the group who is friendly. So I would just continue to go out and play and hang around and have patience. I know it's hard as a kid to have patience. It's different when you're 67 years old, but when you're a kid, even one day can seem really long. But eventually, in a matter of weeks or months, these kids will get used to seeing you as long as you're out there and you make yourself available. One more thing, I guess I would say is don't push yourself on them. You know, you have to allow them to get used to seeing you and get used to knowing, because they are looking at you and they are wondering who you are. And if you just keep coming out, being around, eventually you'll have a new group of friends, and then you'll be part of the crowd, and then sooner or later some new person will come and you can look at them and you can remember what it feels like, and then you can try to welcome the new person in, and so life goes in a cycle. So thank you for the opportunity to talk, and I wish I was still a kid, but I'm not. But kids are lucky. You have a wonderful life, okay? Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for that segment, Cary, but the episode's not over yet. I answered 3 questions per episode, and since Cary already answered 1, there's still 2 more to go. So, caller 2, what's the scoop? In my school, my reputation is Miss Perfect. Just because I know the answers to all of the questions does not mean that's what I want to be known for. Everyone thinks of me as the teacher's pet, and I'm kind to everyone. I really want to change that image. I want people to see me as someone who at least has a personality. What should I do? Caller 2, do you really, truly hate being Miss Perfect? Or is there a reason you gave yourself that reputation? If you work hard and you study hard, which leads you to get good answers on tests, then you should feel proud. But I do get that you want to change your image. So here's my advice. Find something you're good at and go for it, 150%. When people think of others' personalities, they think of things that person is really good at. What are you good at? Are you an amazing singer or really good at art? Or maybe you can play a sport really well. Find that thing so people will see you from a different perspective. But I don't think that they'll ever forget the Miss Perfect side of you, because that's a part of who you are. I'm sure you'll find another talent that describes your personality too. Thanks for calling, caller 2. Alright, Alright, guys, it's now time for our last caller of the day, and they say, "Hi, my parents want me to be just like them all the time, always being good at everything. But I'm different than them. I want to tell them without letting them down. What should I do?" I guess it's a little hard to answer, because I've never been in a situation like that. But if I were, here's what I would do. I'd explain to my parents who I want to be. You should be who you choose to be, and what your parents say shouldn't change that. Do what you want to. You don't have to be amazing at everything you try, but everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. You'll find your strengths too. Thanks for sending in your question. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of The Inside Scoop. But before I end this, I have a few things to say. First, I'd like to thank Cary once again for agreeing to guest star on my podcast. I'd also like for you guys to let me know if you'd like to see more guest stars in the future. Like always, if you want a chance to have your own questions answered and featured in my podcast, just voice message me through Anchor or email me at insidescoopquestions@gmail.com. Tune in next Sunday for a brand new episode. I'll see you all next time on The Inside Scoop, the only advice column podcast for kids.